Dr. McGee, it looks like we are ready to get started.
Great. Well, welcome everyone to the June 5th ad hoc meeting of the OPTN Board of Directors. Well, before we get started, we'll go ahead and take a quorum.
The quorum link has been added to the chat function. I ask all board members to please click on the link and acknowledge your presence. And I will, as soon as I get confirmation, I will announce it. Dr. McGee, quorum has been reached.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. So can we go to the next slide? Just to remind everyone that this is an open meeting in support of good board culture. Please turn on your video if possible. Keep your microphone muted unless you're speaking. As I mentioned, it's open meeting and it's being recorded. There is closed captioning available if you prefer, and please use the raise hand function to ask questions during the Q&A or other times, and use the chat for technical reasons, just to facilitate meeting flow. Next slide. So I'm going to briefly review the agenda. As I mentioned, this is an ad hoc meeting that was primarily designed and called to approve the ratification of, or for the board to ratify the results of the 2026 board election. We'll then, that'll be a voting item. We'll then move into some other updates, and then the board will move into closed session. So next. So our first item of business is ratification of the 2026 board officer elections. I'd also like to thank all the members of the public who are attending this meeting, as well as the people who voted in these elections. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vice President Shelley Hall to present the election results.
Shelley, you're on mute.
Thank you, Dr. McGee. Just as a reminder that president and vice president roles were extended a year. And so the positions that went out for election was the vice president of patient affairs and the secretary. Next slide. So looking at the results, 60.6% of members participated in the election, which occurred from May 15th to 22nd. We encourage any members who are attending this, if for some reason you did not get a vote, let us know so that we can make sure emails are always updated. The positions results are shown below. The vice president of patient and donor affairs, the winner of that election was Bill Ryan, who is our current VP of patient and donor affairs. And the winner of the secretary election was Dr. Kim Watt, who's the medical director of Living Liver Transplantation Program at the Mayo. Congratulations to these two winners. Next slide.
Go ahead.
So with that, I would not sure there's any discussion. We would go to ratify the vote, but as if there's any questions.
Any discussion, any questions? I don't see, Doug, are there any hands up?
I don't see any.
I see no hands up.
Okay, great.
Okay. We can move.
Well, thanks. Thanks, Shelley. Before we go ahead and vote, I'd like to thank all the candidates who participated, the candidates that ran, and everyone who voted. The election process is an important part of how the OPTN works, and I appreciate the engagement of all. I also want to recognize Bill Ryan for his continued leadership and welcome Kim in her new role as secretary. So with that, there's a motion to endorse the results of the election as noted here.
Yes, you can see the resolution language. Doug, I'm not sure I need to read it unless you need it recorded.
I would,
Okay.
I would appreciate if you
I will
read
do
it,
it.
but I see
Now,
Mr.
yes,
Hodges'
John.
hand up.
Yes, I'm not sure if the text has all the words that were intended in it. It confirms the election of the following individuals to the office set forth beside their respective names, each to serve for the term. The term is not defined, beginning as of July 1 or until their successors are duly elected and qualified. I presume that that clause is in case we decide that they are not going to finish their term or for some other reason they don't finish their term, but the term is not defined.
I
It
think
is
that,
defined in the bylaws.
and below, but 2-year term.
Yeah, it is also, yeah, it is next to their names as well.
All right.
So now therefore be it resolved that the board hereby ratifies and approves the results of the board officer election and confirms the election of the following individuals to the offices set forth beside their respective names, each to serve for the term beginning as of July 1 or until their successors are duly elected and qualified. Vice President, Patient and Donor Affairs, Bill Ryan for 2-year term. Secretary, Dr. Kimberly Watt, 2-year term. Resolved further that each officer so elected shall serve as the same officer of the OPTN and is hereby authorized and empowered to perform the duties of their respective offices as set forth in the bylaws and applicable OPTN policies.
Second.
Any further discussion? Any hands, Doug?
I see no hands, Dr. McGee.
All right. Tennille, can you go ahead and
Board.
put the link in the chat?
It is,
The voting link has been added.
yes.
I ask all board members to vote now.
John, it's Kim. I assume I don't vote.
I assume so, as well as
All
Bill.
officer candidates, excuse me, all officer candidates should abstain from voting. The motion was approved, 20 approved, 0 reject, 1 abstain. I think.
Great.
Thank you
Go ahead,
all.
Doug. Okay, great. Congratulations to Bill and Kimberly. Thank you, Jen, for running, as well as Justin. Before we go on, I want to take a moment and just bring forward my intent to consider is to consider exercising something within the bylaws, which is the ability to appoint an assistant secretary or treasurer. The bylaws provide for the ability of the president to appoint somebody. That position would need to be ratified by the board. I intend to appoint Justin Wilkerson with approval of the board to serve as assistant secretary. I've discussed this with both Justin and Kim. Kim is supportive of that. I think Justin has both done an exceptional job with his leadership, both at the officer level as well as within the allocation out of sequence work, which has been critical and is front and foremost of the things we've both accomplished and to date, and also need to see across the finish line. He's provided thoughtful leadership, strong engagement, and a valuable perspective as somebody who both has operational experience in his day job as well as being a patient and donor family member. So my approach, and as I mentioned, I've discussed it with Dr. Watt, who is supportive of this. I think it will add vital continuity as we move through this period of transition. My plan is mostly I wanted to bring this forward to the board for awareness. We can vote on it on June 18th. Alternatively, we can hear about discussion now. Opening it up. Millie.
Hi, everyone. Is this a position we're going to think about carrying forward to continue transition as we go down the pike?
I think the way the bylaws are written, it's currently on a year by year ad hoc, ad needed basis.
I see.
John,
Would the assistant secretary be on the executive committee?
Doug or
They certainly could be on it. Those conversations have not been had in terms of the makeup of those, since the committees that we're still finalizing all committees, not just board committees.
I don't believe there's any mention in the bylaws as to what the assistant position would be part of or not part of. So
Do
it would be something
yeah.
for us to determine.
Is Melanie on? It's obviously not in a scrot. Melanie,
Right, no, there are certain designated positions on the executive committee, and the assistant is not one. But as it's been pointed out, we are in the process of revising how the board committees are structured. And so that is a consideration that the work group can certainly
Can
talk
add.
about.
yeah, so currently it's not an officer position on the executive committee, so that's a no to that question currently. And then I don't know if it's essential for him to serve on the executive committee. Melanie, correct me if I'm wrong. There are appointments to the executive. There are 10 people on the executive committee, but
Yeah, so some are ex officio, so they serve by their title, and then there are certain composition requirements under the final rule that need to be filled for the category. But yeah, does that answer your question?
yeah, I think it.
And I just wanted to address Mealy's question is that there isn't anything in the bylaws that it is a mandatory appointment every year. I think, what we're finding during this transition is so much is both changing and unknown. And so the continuity is more important. I think once we're eventually in a more standard way of doing everything, it may not be as needed. But in the bylaws, it doesn't say, it's just at the discretion.
It's certainly, and I think it's a great question. I also don't think it should be a general practice just because if the president can decide to appoint somebody to this position, that would be the president making the executive committee probably undue impact on the balance of the executive committee. So the ad hoc, the people that are the other people on the executive committee add a lot, and they're elected by the board. So
I mean, in terms of transition, I think it is a good idea. And there's certainly precedent from the OPTN committees, right, where the chair who steps down stays on and kind of, guides the committee through the next year. But I can see how it would really weight the exec committee, and that might be more challenging.
100%. And in many ways, it's a lot of times I think the best role of this position would be and it's a 1 year term. The best role of this position would be in the ascending role, as you say, the vice chair, the idea that somebody could become this position or learning on the job. Obviously, Justin has as much experience with kind of things as all of us, because it's been limited. So I think the primary intent of it's not specified as such, but I think the primary role would be kind of the newer person being in that role, but because of, again, the way the board has been seated in the continuity, there's no role for past secretary. Other comments or questions? Does we can discuss, I'm happy to either entertain a motion now or plan to have it discussed at our next meeting, which I'm fine with too. The plan was to have it discussed next time, just so people at least heard about it and we have an opportunity to think about it.
Is there anyone opposed to doing that now, or?
See no hands raised.
I think given the, I'm also, anyone in support of, it will be, actually, my read of the bylaws is it could be done any time of the year regardless. And we've tried to, or we're trying to bring things forward while we're thinking about them to the board. And I think, I can't remember, it was Millie's question, which I think was really good, about something that I hadn't considered. So I certainly also would be fine putting this off for 2 weeks as well to have people weigh in if they want to separately.
Annette has her hand raised.
Sorry, Annette, I can't see it.
That's okay. Darren does too.
Okay.
I just wanted to say I support doing it now if we have the time, and we all know Justin, so I would support now.
Thank you. Darren?
Hey, thanks. So just for my understanding, I'm sorry if I missed this. What is the advantage of appointing the assistant secretary in this scenario? Because I'm just quickly trying to look at the bylaws to see how this position is crafted or constructed. It seems like it's continuity for the sitting secretary, but what is the advantage?
I think by having them in, well, other than the ones we talked about, those are the main things, the ability to help with transition, ongoing work and critical tasks. It's important. Justin brings a unique blend of patient, donor, family experience as well. But we also don't want to create a huge, these are just some potential advantages, none of which are structural, to your point.
Thanks.
Any other comments or questions?
I see no hands raised.
All right. All right, why don't we, lacking a motion, why don't we defer this for the next vote? Annette, I take your, there've been questions, so and I don't want to make people feel like we're rushing this or anything like that. So consider it, mull it over, and we'll bring it forward to the next meeting. All right, with that, thank you. Next slide. So I'm going to open it up for other new business. Next slide. The first item of other business I want to talk about is the board was notified, as the community has been as well, is that HRSA announced a new contractor to serve in the role of patient safety and compliance. As you'll recall, within the modernization structure, a lot of the tasks and the ways to look at what needs to, where we need people to do things is defined by tasks or roles, and what that looks like depends on a lot of things. One of the key parts of what the OPTN does is it oversees patient safety, compliance, membership. A lot of those roles currently sit within MPSC, but to view this contractor solely as the MPSC support person or support team is a little is not, we do not need to be constrained by that. So we'll just need to see how things evolve, but most of the work will be in the space of MPSC. As I mentioned, I think GDIT is the contractor that won, and they're partnering with Arbor. There are going to be a lot of questions about this as we go forward. We're just in the very initial steps. Both, as you'll recall, GDIT is serving the is serving as the OPTN 360 contractor, and all of us have interacted with them so far. They're familiar about what's going on in this space, and Arbor Research actually led the discovery contract related to this work. So they went through a process of selection within HRSA and the contracting system. They were announced, I believe, last week, and they were being onboarded. The goal here is really to have them meet us where we are rather than we helping them. So the expectation is that they will hit the ground running. A lot of the pre-work and all this contracting stuff is related to filling in the tasks. And as this goes forward, there'll also be opportunities for us to evaluate how they're doing. So Brianna or Ray, do you want to add anything?
No, that sounds good, John. There's going to be more communication around what this constitutes and how we're going to ensure, as you said, that the contractors for the OPTN, it is really not something that as contractors come and go, that is of less concern to you all. It is that they should meet your needs, do so rapidly, and that they have the skills and are able to provide a high quality of service to all of you. So we look forward to continuing the conversation.
And again, this will be discussed as we move forward. A lot of this can be behind the scenes as well, and questions should go to OPTN 411 or the links on the website. So we don't need to necessarily worry about how to contact either one of those contractors, because at some point in the future, we want it to be consistent and seamless as time moves on. So contractor agnostic. All right. Any questions about that? I don't see any
No
hands.
hands raised.
Okay, with that, I'll open it up to other new business before we move into closed session. Sam.
I wanted to just ask, and this might be a question for Dr. Lasky, whether we've made any progress in the allocation out of sequence dashboard to display by organ, just given that the emergency action in lung allocation was predicated on reducing allocation out of sequence in order to consider continuous distribution. I think it would be great to have transparency in how that is being impacted by the policy change, and having it by organ nationally visible to all would be a great way to enhance transparency.
Great question. Thank you for the question. It is under active development, is all I can say. Like, this is the thing we've received the most requests for. It is something we are working on. I don't have a timeline for it. There are moving parts, but it's something we are actively working on.
Okay, I just knew since the OPOs are getting reports that have that data, that we must have the data available to us.
We do. It's about getting it into the dashboard. That's the hard part.
And as you know, Sam, has been discussed, allocation out of sequence has generally been dropping, but some of that is just the watching and monitoring. So our goal is also to create durable policy that will continue it moving forward. But good question.
And that's with the policy implementation, I think, why it's that much more important to be able to see what was happening without that, and then whether the policy is actually making an impact.
Yeah, or the policy can also be keeping it down lower than it would be if it went away. But the causality is very hard to link. But regardless, I encourage the getting that data available again as soon as possible. Andrew.
Thanks, John. I have a question about the public comments for the continuous distribution changes with lung allocation. From what I can see, they've stopped being posted after 5/22. I don't see any comments that have been uploaded since then. Maybe this is just a function of how I'm viewing or manipulating the website, but can we have some clarification as to why the comments have stopped being posted?
Sure, Andrew, I can take that one. I will remind everyone again, we had a lot of questions around rabies and DCD. These are functions of updating the website. Sometimes there is a need to clear your cache or otherwise like refresh your page. There is no suppression. There is no issue. If you are seeing the trickle in of comments coming, sometimes they come up with batches. It depends on when we get them and when they're queued up. But again, please, everyone, as you also talk with the community, all comments are being received, and we are working on making sure that turnaround is faster. This is about the servicing of a website. It is not about a policy. There is nothing else going on. But I hear you, Andrew. I'll check back in with our web team, but please do not read
It's
anything
been
into it.
2 weeks since the last comment was posted, and then there was a bunch of comments posted initially. It certainly is not a good look, and I understand it's not intentional, but I don't think it's a good look for us as a board or for the community in general to have 2 weeks go by without any comments being posted on a policy that we've invited public comment on.
Okay, let me make sure first that it's not a problem that is specific to your view or an individual view. My understanding was we did not have an issue, but let me check into it. But I would again just reiterate that I think please do disambiguate something that it may even be the interaction with the website, but I will talk with our web team
That
today.
would be great, and I'm happy to pass that message on. If this is really going to be a case going forward, it may be helpful to advertise that on the web page itself. Again, because the optics of this are not great.
Okay, well, thank you for your feedback, and we will dig into it on our side. I will talk to our comms people right now.
No, that's real important, Andrew. Thanks for bringing it up. And Brianna, when you were talking about the cache, cleaning the cache, is that on Andrew or my side, or it's on the server side bringing them in?
It's something you may have to do. I know that happened for a few folks before. But
Okay.
again, let me just
Okay.
check in with our web team and with our comms team and get
Okay.
something back to you.
Okay, Sam said the same thing too. So we ought to just make sure that that's not an issue, because for the other ones it had worked, and I have sense that we have seen them all. But if this is going to be just to reiterate the process after people submit them, there is a review process where comments that are inappropriate or threatening are not allowed. So, right?
Right, and we actually did intervene, so that's why I'm checking in with our team. We heard your feedback last time, so we had put into place additional ways to like ease the process. So if that's not working, thank you for the feedback, and we'll get back to you all if it is something around the website. Comment page navigation does, okay. Thank you all for your feedback. I will get back to you, but we had actually put into place things that should have helped these turnaround more quickly. So let me talk to the web folks and comms folks.
Okay, and that's currently being served by a contract. Is that by the?
Yes.
Is there a current contractor in that role?
Yes, there is.
Perfect.
And that is
Okay,
on the
good.
website. Yep.
I just want to make sure I understood who was doing what, and so okay, thank you. Thanks for bringing that forward, Andrew. The public comment period, remind me again when it closes, like June. I don't want to misspeak.
July 3rd.
July.
Yeah. And I will also just note that if people are sending, please do participate in public comment through submission. If people send things through other routes, you all are a great source of information. It must be received through public comment. And communicating with the OPTN through other channels is not the same as submitting your public comment. So please do redirect folks. If they send you an email and say, please include this, it doesn't work that way when it comes to government and public comment periods. So thanks for your help.